There is a land in the middle of the sea, the land of an extraordinary little community. A community whose kingdom is nature, a discreet, almost invisible community, the community of animals. We tend to say that they're wild, but do we really know them? Their land is an island, Guadeloupe. Her luxuriant nature protects and feeds them, and from the highest mountains down to the sea, there's not a single piece of her land or her skies where animals do not live out their secret existence. From the smallest to the biggest, let us hear their story. They recount it on the wind, through the trees, and in the song of the sea. It is the most beautiful of stories, that of a life that is free and wild, out of sight of mankind. It all starts here, in the heights of the Haute Soufriere volcano. Perched at an altitude of 1,467 meters, it catches the clouds carried here by the trade winds. The clouds have traveled from the farthest Atlantic horizons. They come loaded with water, torn from the sea. Close to the volcano, there is no rock richer in minerals than that of petrified lava. And thus, on these inaccessible slopes, where no tree can take root, there abounds a myriad of plant species of great rarity. Lycopod, ferns and sphagnum moss, thyme, and even wild mountain pineapple, all this mountain vegetation is spongy. It gorges itself with water, retains it, preserves it, and charges it with minerals. A reservoir of humidity unlike any other, the summit of the Soufriere is the giant water tower for the whole of Guadeloupe. In this high-altitude treasure trove begins a natural cycle peculiar to islands and coastal shores, a planetary cycle that is essential to ocean life, since it truly is the earth which feeds the sea. Here in Guadeloupe, this perpetual water cycle begins with the Carbet Falls. The first fall drops in 2 tiers from a height of 115 meters. Further down his course towards the sea, the second fall makes a leap of 110 meters. Throughout their vertiginous journey, the waters of the Carbet make a last dive of about 20 meters in a circular basin, a place where the magic of the Taino Indians, the island's first inhabitants, has remained intact. It is in this place, far from the tumult of the world, that the slow work of the water begins to accomplish its mission, throughout its journey to feed not only the earth, but also the sea and their inhabitants in an endless flow. When the water reaches the lower altitudes, the contrast between its coolness and the surrounding heat sparks an explosion of tropical luxuriance. Every blade of grass, every drop of water, every breath of wind hides, protects, and feeds various forms of life which offer themselves to one another in a continuous cycle of regeneration. Light and minerals. This is where life begins. in the running water. The torrents of Basse-Terre shelter a fish called the mountain mullet, aptly named since it lives at altitude close to the springs. The mountain mullet thrives at these heights. Nevertheless, it comes from the sea. From the coasts, its species gives birth to their offspring, and when the young have grown enough, they make their way up the rivers, leaping waterfalls and obstacles, propelled by a single instinct to colonize these water courses as high up as possible. Another creature familiar to the running water comes here to feed on plankton. It sucks it from the surface of the river pebbles. This feeding habit gave the fish its name, the coal rush, or rock clinger. Its suckers also help it make its way upriver by clinging from one pebble after the next. The rock clinger coexists with the wasu. Omnivorous, the wasu feed on decomposing plant matter and carcasses. The wasu should not be confused with crayfish. The latter are crawlers, whereas the wasu, which are large freshwater shrimp, can swim. For the wasu, the females carry the eggs under their protective tails until maturity. When the rainy season arrives and the watercourses no longer risk drying up, they drop their eggs to hatch in every possible nook and cranny. Dragged downstream by the current, the juveniles spend time in the nutrient-rich estuaries before they return upstream against the current of the river where they were born. Born in the water, life has inexorably colonized the earth and the skies. A population with gills and fins, some with roots, even legs. Guadeloupe also has a winged population. This discreet animal, dwelling on land as much as in the air, is the crescent dove. This dove is also found in the other islands of the Lesser Antilles arc. It tells us the story of the animal colonization of the archipelago. A volcano that emerged from the sea, Guadeloupe was initially a desert island devoid of any life. Over time, several varieties of plants and animals settled here. Today, these same species are endemic, since they date back to the island's very first ages. Later, after the arrival of man, Guadeloupe received a concoction of imported species. This mixing between endemic and imported species changes the ecosystems, from the rainforests to the mangrove swamps, and from the wild pineapples to the banana plantations. Among the most recently installed residents is the mongoose family. Having come from the Indies by boat around the end of the 18th century. Predatory and invasive, the price of their arrival on Guadeloupe was the extinction of the parakeet, the burrowing owl, and many other birds whose eggs they hunted. The coruscant thrush is still wary of them. Prying, even a little thuggish, the mongoose also eradicated all the snakes on the island. These opportunist little carnivorous mammals also feed on insects and even on frogs. Not surprising then that from the ground up to the treetops, everyone fears the mongoose. With no rivals, the mongoose has extended its territory from the mountains all the way down to the sea. And when it comes to sharing a hunting ground, they even become aggressive among one another. Today, nothing untoward happened in the mongoose kingdom, but tomorrow may be another day. Fortunately, in the vast primary rainforest of Guadeloupe, not all the birds have succumbed to the reign of the mongoose. There remains one member of the original winged population who succeeded in escaping them. It is the only one and the last endemic bird on the island. Can you hear it? Is it the creaking of an elderly tree? No. It is a Guadeloupe black woodpecker. It is marking its territory by drumming away with its beak on the hollow trunks, a way to chase off contenders and to seduce a partner. Far from priding itself on being the island's last native bird, this male with the dark red breast stays constantly on the alert. His species is threatened with extinction by the modern world's depletion of its natural habitat. Here is the female, all black. She's looking in the trees for insects to feed on. Soon, she and her male will nest. The male has the task to excavate their nest in a dead tree. It will take him around 10 days to reach a depth of about 30 centimeters. The height of the nest matters little, between 2 and 20 meters. What matters is that the trunk should be very smooth and inaccessible to predators. So now the female helps to select the ideal tree where she will accept to lay her eggs. Further descent down towards zero sea level. These are the limits of the Guadeloupe National Natural Park. Here, the wilderness vanishes and man's footprint is drawn on nature's landscape. The landscape transforms to reveal palm trees, fields of sugarcane, a vast inflorescence of strange-shaped tropical flowers, and banana plantations. Despite appearances, it is not man's hand that reigns supreme, but still and forever nature. Wildlife manages to profit from humans' cultivation through a minuscule, discreet, an impregnable population, the ants. This is the family of the Autentic ants, known as the cassava ants. Autentic ants have jaws powerful enough to cut through the toughest leaves, like shears. Entire trees lose all their leaves in a single day. What do the ants do with all these leaves? They do not eat them. They take them into the depths of their ant nests. There, they make a compost from them, where their only real food grows. A fungus which on its own feeds the whole colony and is thousands of larvae. The indefatigable cassava ants are a nightmare for the farmers. Entire crops disappear in just a few days because of these tiny inhabitants. A population of minute proportions, but quite devastating. In the end, cassava ants thus contribute to the enrichment of Guadeloupe's subsoil in nutrients and minerals. A treasure of great quality which, at the end of their harvesting season, when the colony is asleep, is carried away by the water trickling down from the mountaintops, feeding the lower slopes on its journey down to the sea. By multiplying the underground chambers in which their fungi grow, cassava ants sometimes extend their territory over a surface between 30 and 600 square meters under the soil. In other territories, but attracted to the same delicacies, the plumeria caterpillars, adorned with colors as vivid as the flower that surround them, also help themselves to man's tender cultures. Unlike the ants, they do not carry off their loot. They are voracious and prefer to gorge it on the spot. They cut and swallow, then swallow some more, until completely full, they cannot eat another bite. In a single day, these caterpillars can gobble up to twice their own body weight. It is best to eat well when one aspires one day to become a moth, fluttering from one flower to the next, in the carefree world of the skies. Men brought not only mongooses in their boats. Their luggage also contained large numbers of plant species. Guadeloupe's multiple varieties of flowers embellish the gardens and supply the pollinators with abundant nectar available all year round. Among these pollinators, the most surprising is the hummingbird. Its wings beat so quickly that it has been nicknamed flybird. This one owes its name of crested hummingbird to the crests sported by the male. This is the smallest of the island's 3 varieties of hummingbird, and its beak is the shortest of all. The crested hummingbird has made the gardens its territory. It knows every single flower in them. Every day it twirls, inspecting the buds ready to blossom before feeding on their nectar. Thanks to its to's and fro's between the flowers, the hummingbird is an essential actor in the pollination of plants. Slender, delicate and deft, the hummingbird is one of the smallest birds on Earth. Alone in being able to beat its wings from front to back, it practices geostationary flight to forage the flowers without having to alight on them. In Guadeloupe, each species of pollinating insects and birds dedicates itself to its favorite varieties of flowers. It is an extraordinary exchange ecosystem. The flower offers more of its precious substance, its nectar. In return, the pollinators disseminate its pollen, ensuring the flower's ability to reproduce. Less nomadic than its crested cousin, the Madeira hummingbird is the largest hummingbird in Guadeloupe. Beautifully colored, it is territorial and does not hesitate to defend its favorite flowers from the greed of its own kind. If the Madeira hummingbird is jealous of its territory, it is not only out of appetite, It is because as the master of an area rich in flowers and nectar plants, it increases its chances of attracting a female. Its beak, which is very long, hides a protractile tongue that allows it to harvest nectar deep in the flowers where no other pollinator can reach. And finally, more difficult to see than its cousins, this is the foul-vert hummingbird. It measures less than 12 centimeters and owes its name to its metallic green plumage. The foul-vert also has its preferences. It only forages in the morning and at the last light of day. Accustomed to the restricted territories along the coastline, it is the hummingbird that lives closest to the sea out of the three species. Like its cousins, the crested and the Madeira, the foul-vert is one of the few inhabitants of the island to profit from the hand of man. Thanks to the thousands of flowers planted to embellish the hedges and gardens, humans provide these tiny and graceful birds with the manna which, coupled with a warm and humid climate, guarantees them a comfortable future. Sometimes, worn out by heat and humidity, the old crater of the Soufriere cannot retain the damp masses that cover it. Then the rain lulls the whole island with its immutable rhythm and its watery mists. During these rainy spells, the American kestrel suspends its flight. Far from being an ordeal for the wildlife of Guadeloupe, rain marks a time for pause, a vital break. The rain will nourish the soil, which in turn ensures the animals their sustenance. Magnified, swollen by this contribution, the flow of water from the summits becomes richer still in nutrients from the earth, which it spreads even further across the low-lying plains. It is here, where the land flattens out, that the hand of man becomes most visible. This does not mean that nature is driven away. Some members of this little community find the living conditions of man's dwellings adequate for their needs. Cool and shady, human homes contain rich treasures of crunchy insects to nibble on. The anole, another endemic species of the island of Guadeloupe and a perfect insectivore, knows how to take advantage of the manna offered by the Creole houses. And once more, during the love parades, to control the best stocked territory is a crucial advantage. So, two males stare each other down. Who will be the master of this place? The braver of the two played the tough guy more convincingly. Impressed, his rival prefers to err on the side of caution. It will be for another occasion. The brightness of day fades away. A moment of waiting, ephemeral, before it is time to rest for Guadeloupe's day shift. For when night falls, it is time for the night shift to clock in. The first to be up at dusk are the raccoons. They are actually known by their English name, raccoons, on this French-speaking island. Amusing and familiar, raccoons are the emblem of the Guadeloupe National Park. An emblem and an enigma. Where did they come from? The most widespread theory has them arriving on the island more than 2,000 years ago with the ethnic Tainos, the first men to populate the Antilles. Now perfectly adapted to its environment, this small family of a mother and her 3 young begin the night with a group grooming session. The 3 juveniles will soon have to lead their own lives. Their mother, who will soon come on heat, will force them to settle in new territories. In the meantime, the mother teaches them how to fend for themselves and survive in the future. For the moment, they are still her responsibility, and she knows of a place where tonight her little family can find what it needs for its development. On the way, as the night thickens, the raccoons feed on anything that they chance upon. Fish, wasu, frogs and anoles make up the bulk of their meals. But tonight, the raccoon mother is contemplating a different menu. A tasty dish cultivated by man. The region of Basse-Terre is dotted with banana plantations. Pure bliss for the raccoons of Guadeloupe, and everyone has a field day. The most daring ones climb to the top of the banana trees. The rest of the family prefers their food to fall from the sky. And even if there are bananas in abundance, there is no question of sharing. It's everyone for itself. For the time being, the young raccoons are the lords of the night, and until the farmers find out about their pilfering, they will continue for a long time to roam under the stars. In the morning, the flow of water advances even further towards the coastline. Once again, the hand of man has redrawn the landscape. Sugarcane fields grow on the best land, while the valleys and wetlands are a delight for cattle. A godsend for the quisqueo blackbird, since the cows, which continually graze in the meadows, prevent vegetation from covering over the soil. As a result, the land left bare is flooded by the humidity tumbling down from the heights, allowing the quisqueo blackbird's favorite insects to proliferate. As for the cows of Guadeloupe, they have long learned to put up with this noisy companion. Not to mention that between their two species, the volatile and the bovine, the win-win agreement modeled on the fundamental principles of all ecosystems prevails over the individual's well-being. As for the ox-keeping heron, it fulfills its role here just as it does everywhere else on the planet. Originally brought from Africa by man, the ox-keeping heron now flies all over the world. Unlike other herons, it is not necessarily dependent on an aquatic environment. The heron takes advantage of the oxen's every movement to hunt. It gets rid of the insects that bother them. This is a benefit for him, as well as for the oxen. Here are two animals that live in harmony. The heron still needs to be patient and fast enough. Whether it comes down from the mountains or falls as rain, it is in these areas at the edge of the fields that fresh water finally meets salt water. This almost nuptial alliance between these waters and the land and sea environments causes an explosion of life in which nature invents inextricable ecological miracles. It protects itself, certain species, and the island from the greatest dangers. Here begins the realm of the mangrove swamp, where the black mangrove tree, whose roots are immersed, manages to breathe thanks to its pneumatophores. In the shade of the mangroves abounds a small world in which the tululu crabs are the undisputed masters. They spend their lives feeding on the remains of animals and plants that abound in this biotope. More discreet, anticipating the slightest sign of danger, and very rarely coming out of their burrows, the land crabs share a bit of the tululu's abundance. That is, when they dare to venture outside between meals. In the depths of the mangrove, fresh water has relinquished its crown to salt water. It is here, along the languid lagoons, that another species of crab has established its kingdom, the semafoot crab. Its living environment is also its subsistence and food, seaweed. Equipped with one pincer larger than the other, the males spend their time intimidating their opponents and showing off their disproportion to seduce the females. But the mating games do not allow them to forget the egrets, and so life goes on, alert to one another every second. Nature works miracles here. The forest islets of red mangroves that dot the expanses of the great marine cul-de-sac. Their role as a rampart against the ocean is crucial to the island's ecosystem. Not content with protecting the coastline, the red mangroves also host a plethora of animal species. Each of them finds its place, from their treetops to the inextricable tangle of their roots. And beneath the surface live countless species of fish under the close protection of this unique mangrove swamp habitat. Mangroves sink their roots several meters deep into the mud of the swamp. Thus interwoven, they then form impregnable fortresses where the aquatic fauna of Guadeloupe shelters its nurseries. At the heart of these natural refuges, the young of a multitude of species can develop in safety while their parents escape the marauding of more powerful predators. In addition to this role of protection of the weakest, the roots also offer a substrate to algae, anemones, and mangrove oysters. They also play a crucial role in the mangrove ecosystem. They filter the water of the lagoon. Life might seem eternal in these waters suspended between the land and the sea. Yet this would be to discount the dangers from the skies. Up there, the clever, stealthy brown pelican watches. Fearsome and clinical, it levies its daily food toll from the mangrove swamp. The pelican needs several tens of meters to take off. This effort costs it a large amount of energy that it replenishes with the herring that it swallows, one after another. Once replete, the pelican likes to meander along the coastline, on a perch or even on boats. Here, at peace, it slowly digests the many herring it has ingurgitated. Under the indifferent gaze of the pelican, Another inhabitant of the island struts around on the rocks, the green iguana. The vegetarian green iguana has not disproved the theories of the illustrious Darwin who discovered it. Quite the reverse. Indeed, recognizable by the large scale located under its eardrum and by its ringed tail, the green iguana from the coasts of South and Central America not only colonized Guadeloupe, but interbred with its endemic cousin, the iguana of the Lesser Antilles. But Guadeloupe is an archipelago, and some of its islands have not been colonized by the intruder. This is the case of the island of Desirade. Located about 10 kilometers east of Grande Terre, Desirade is one of the last bastions of the Lesser Antillean iguana, Iguana delicatissima. Smaller and darker than its cousin the green iguana, the delicatissima finds on this island of Desirade all the vegetation it needs to feed on. An iguana has a strong body. It can move as easily in trees as on rocks or in the water, where it is an excellent swimmer. Its limbs with 5 clawed fingers allow it to climb up and perch on any observation post with ease. Dark but not uniform, the color of an iguana can vary between individuals according to their age, sex, and even their social status. Juveniles can be recognized by their bright green skin, and females by their matte green or even dark or greenish grey appearance. Dominant males are dark grey, brown, or downright black. Only their heads may tend to whiten with age. A cold-blooded reptile, the iguana spends its time between shade and sunlight to regulate its body temperature. Threatened with extinction, the Iguana delicatissima only survives on Desirade and on a few other scattered islets of Guadeloupe. The water from the peaks and the soufriere mingles with that of the great marine cul-de-sac. The minerals leached from the soil are mixed with the debris from the coastline, burned by the sun and salt. Here on these dry sands, we see the comings and goings of creatures with ill-assorted shells. They are the children of a common ancestor, yet each carries a different house on its back. Here are the nomads of all the shores on earth. They are born without their own roofs or houses and borrow them from those who no longer need them, the hermit crabs. And like their cousins, these hermit crabs also borrow abandoned shells, though they are distinguishable by a unique feature. They are not marine, but terrestrial, or rather, neither and yet both at the same time. Here in Guadeloupe, the hermit crabs travel from the beach all the way up to the forests, where they can even be seen devouring leaves or fruit. Protected by the fortresses they have found on their travels, the hermit crabs have few predators, except for the birds that cross the sky at sunset, precisely the moment when the hermit crab leaves its hiding place to find food. For the ox-keeping herons, it is time for sleep. They too need the protection of their environment against their predators. The mangrove trees on the islets are the only safe points on the bare horizon, and they're only dormitories. Dormitories or parlors, when the daylight fades, it is important to muscle in and find one's place among the slender branches. When the day comes, each species counts its survivors from the past night. And in the bay, the marine ecosystems welcome the first rays of the sun. These rays awaken life, triggering the photosynthesis of phytoplankton, which is fed by the mineral riches brought to the sea by fresh water from the rivers. An explosion of life that benefits another population. Another miracle of evolution between land and sea. The green turtle, long hunted by man for its flesh and its eggs. The green turtle is at last a protected species which now has some chance of survival along the coast of Guadeloupe. The seabed around the island is rich in herbaria whose growth is favoured by the shallow depth of the bay. The tarpon know how to find an ideal hunting ground there. Always in good company, the stingray is on the lookout on the seabed for crabs, lobsters, and shellfish. This lady which follows it everywhere is the jackfish, who knows how to take advantage of the confusion caused by the stingray to catch small fleeing invertebrates. All the inhabitants of the Great Marine Cul-de-sac Bay now enjoy the protection of the Guadeloupe National Park. Here they find refuge and food, and as wildlife declines all around the world, these reserves play an indispensable role. Facing the ocean, a natural wall has protected the archipelago for millennia. This wall is the coral reef. An exceptionally rich ecosystem, corals are home to an entire marine community which depends upon this fortress to feed and to find shelter. The lobster is one of the emblematic inhabitants of these reefs. Hidden under a rock, it awaits nightfall to emerge in search of its sustenance. The lionfish, a newcomer originating in the Pacific, proliferates at the expense of endemic species. The reefs of Guadeloupe are as rich as they are varied, and the multitude of species and the beauty of the seabed make them one of the most sought-after marine paradises. North of Grande Terre, the steep limestone cliffs face the ocean. Here, the depths of the open sea meet the earth with full force. It is from these heights that one can observe a giant mammal which hunts in the deep waters along the archipelago, the sperm whale. A genuine underwater monument, the sperm whale is an emblematic animal of the coasts of Guadeloupe. It bears witness to the vitality of the ocean, from the depths right up to the surface. Hunted in former times, the great cetaceans are now increasingly present along the coasts. They show us that nothing is ever lost, and that when man gives himself the means, it is possible to preserve, to protect, and coexist with nature. And nature and all its animals, which give us so much in return.